I cried alone in the break room. And my Enigma boss destroyed the men who hurt me. Evan, look at me. Who made you cry? The voice came from the break room doorway just after 7 in the evening, quiet enough that I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. I was sitting alone on the 24th floor of Sterling Ridge consulting with the lights off, my phone face down beside a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, and a tissue crushed in my palm. Of all the people who could have found me like that, Marcus Whitmore was the last person I wanted to see. He was the founder and chief executive officer of Sterling Ridge, an enigma whose presence could silence senior alphas without him raising his voice. I had watched directors straighten when he entered meetings. I had seen men twice my size lower their voices when he passed. Even now I could feel the edge of his scent held under ruthless control, power restrained rather than displayed. "Nobody," I said. My phone lit up again. The performance warning I had received less than 3 hours earlier filled the screen. Marcus glanced at it, then back at me. "Nobody" seems unusually specific. I am fine. "No, you are not." He did not move closer. "Do you want me to leave?" That question hit harder than any command could have. Nobody had asked what I wanted all day. Maybe nobody had asked in months. I don't know. "Then I can stay by the door until you do." He set a bottle of water on the counter and remained several feet away. Rain streaked the narrow window overlooking Boston. The refrigerator hummed behind me, absurdly normal while my career seemed to be collapsing. "Improvement warning?" he asked. I nodded. "From whom?" "Grant Caldwell." Colin Reeves was copied. Marcus knew both names. Grant ran our client strategy group. Colin was his senior account manager and favorite lieutenant. Both were alphas with polished records and reputations for getting results. Did something happen today? I almost laughed. Something had been happening for months. Today was simply the day I ran out of strength to pretend it was normal. That morning, Grant had presented the Bellwood recovery strategy to leadership. Bellwood had nearly terminated its contract after months of pricing errors and poor service. I had spent 6 weeks rebuilding the forecasts, redesigning the pricing model, and taking early calls with the client. Grant had skipped most of them. Yet he stood at the front of the room accepting congratulations while my work filled every slide. When one vice president asked a technical question, Grant looked down at my notes before answering. When another praised the revised model, Colin smiled and said, "Evan mostly cleaned up the numbers." I was sitting less than 10 feet away. After the meeting, I asked Grant whether the final account record would reflect my contribution. His smile never changed. "Senior leadership carries the risk, Evan. Senior leadership receives the recognition." Then he reminded me that my annual review was approaching. By 4, the warning arrived: emotionally inconsistent, overly sensitive, unreliable under pressure. Professional words for the version of me they had been building. By 6:30, every keyboard click around my desk felt too loud. I hid in the break room and finally cried. Marcus was still by the door when I finished. "Was today the first time they made you feel like this?" I shook my head. His jaw tightened. For 1 second the room seemed to compress around him, the unmistakable pressure of an enigma losing patience. Then he drew it back so quickly I wondered if I had imagined it. "Then tell me where it started," he said. "Not who should be punished. Not what he should do. Where it started." So I did. 3 months earlier, Grant had handed me Bellwood after the client threatened to leave. He called it an opportunity. What he meant was that nobody senior wanted their name attached if it failed. I rebuilt years of account data, stayed late, and kept the client from walking. Once success looked likely, Grant stepped back in and claimed the recovery. When I objected, Colin began making comments that were almost impossible to report. He said I took things too personally. He joked that client strategy could be intense for an Omega. Once he told me I should stop confusing being helpful with being important. Then meetings disappeared from my calendar. Deadlines changed. I would submit a report Friday and find different numbers in it Monday. When I questioned Colin, he would smile and ask, "Are you sure that isn't what you sent?" At first, I believed him. I checked my work 3 times. Then 5. I stopped taking lunch away from my desk. I stayed later. I began making small mistakes because I was exhausted and terrified of making mistakes. Grant used those too. One memory came back sharper than the others. 2 weeks earlier, Colin had changed a client projection after I submitted it, then projected the altered spreadsheet during a Monday meeting. The total was wrong by nearly $80,000. Grant had turned toward me in front of 12 people. "Evan, this is exactly the kind of detail we cannot afford to miss." I had apologized before I even understood what had happened. Colin had leaned back in his chair and given me a sympathetic little smile, as if he felt sorry for me. Afterward, I spent my lunch break in a bathroom stall comparing the file on my laptop with a PDF I had exported Friday. The PDF was correct. The shared file was not. When I showed Colin, he glanced at it and said, "Versions get messy. Don't become paranoid." I remembered that word now. Paranoid. It was almost impressive how carefully they had chosen language that made every attempt to defend myself sound like further evidence against me. Once, behind his closed office door, he told me exactly how human resources would see any complaint: 2 senior alphas with strong records and 1 junior omega who was struggling emotionally. They were building a version of you, Marcus said. Maybe parts of it were true. I did get emotional. After months of having your work altered, taken, and used against you. That doesn't mean I handled it well. His gaze stayed on mine. "Evan, someone does not get to create the conditions that exhaust you and then use your exhaustion as proof that you are the problem." My throat tightened. I kept thinking if I worked harder, they'd stop. Did they? No. Then your effort was never the problem. For the first time, I said the thing I had been afraid to admit. They made me doubt my own memory. Marcus was silent for a moment. "Do you still have your original work?" I looked at him. Yes. Something cold and dangerous passed through his expression. "Good," he said. "Tomorrow, don't confront anyone for me. Don't accuse anyone for me. Just find out what the records remember." That night, for the first time in months, I went home afraid of what I might discover instead of afraid that I was imagining everything. The next morning I reached Sterling Ridge before most of the lights were on. Boston looked grey beyond the windows, and the Charles River was a strip of dull silver beneath the clouds. I opened my laptop and created a folder with my name, the date, and one word, originals. I started with Bellwood. My final pricing model. Client emails. Call notes. Calendar invitations. Draft presentations. Then I opened the version history for a forecast Colin had criticized. My submission, Friday for 48 p.m. Colin Reeves opened the file, Monday 7:12 a.m. 3 cells changed. 2 projections moved. A paragraph rewritten. Grant emailed me at 9:15 asking why my numbers did not match the client data. I stared at the timestamps until my pulse began hammering. A second report showed the same pattern. A third was worse. The project system showed a deadline moved from Tuesday afternoon to Monday morning after the assignment had been sent to me. The original email still said Tuesday. Colin had asked in a team meeting why I was late, and I had apologized in front of everyone. I had gone home that night wondering whether I was becoming careless. I had not been careless. Someone had been manufacturing proof that I was. "You are here early." I nearly closed the laptop when Colin appeared beside my desk holding coffee. He smiled. "Trying to catch up. Organizing my work. Good idea. You've had a rough few weeks." I looked at him and wondered how many times that soft voice had made me distrust myself. "Did you edit my Friday forecast after I submitted it?" His smile thinned. "I review junior work all the time. You changed the numbers. Then they probably needed changing." Grant blamed me for those numbers. Colin shrugged. Maybe focus less on blame and more on improving. He walked away. My hands were shaking, but I reopened the history and saved screenshots. At 9:10, Grant summoned me to his office. I hear you questioned Colin. I asked why he changed a report after I submitted it. Grant folded his hands. This fixation on credit and file ownership is becoming a concern. It isn't a fixation if someone changes my work and I get blamed for it. His pleasant expression disappeared. Be careful with accusations you cannot prove. Your improvement warning is active. I would hate to add concerns about professionalism. Fear rose in my chest, familiar and automatic. But beneath it was something new. I could prove it. I left without arguing and documented the exact time of the conversation. Then I searched the Bellwood calendar archive. 3 client meetings had been removed from my active calendar after the renewal. Archived notifications still existed. Grant had attended all 3 using slides I created. By lunch, I understood the pattern. They had not simply taken credit when it was convenient. They had changed records, moved deadlines, removed access, altered work, then used the confusion they created to make me look unreliable. At 4:30, Marcus sent one message, "Can you speak before you leave?" I took my laptop upstairs. He was waiting near a smaller executive lounge instead of behind his enormous office desk. I chose the chair closest to the door. He took the one across from me. "What did you find?" I showed him the logs. He studied each timestamp without interrupting. When I reached the deadline changes, the air shifted. Marcus's Enigma presence rolled through the room once, cold, dense, furious enough that the hairs on my arms lifted. A second later he forced it back under control. "I thought Enigmas didn't lose control," I said before I could stop myself. His mouth tightened. "We do. The difference is what we choose to do next." For one strange second, I noticed how beautiful he was when he was angry and hated myself for noticing. "They made me think something was wrong with me," I said. There was something wrong. His eye stayed on the screen. "It wasn't you. What if Grant says I'm twisting this? The records still exist. What if Colin calls it routine review? Then an independent team examines the history. What if human resources believes them? Then human resources won't be the only place looking." I looked up. Marcus leaned back, deliberately giving the room more space. Internal audit and outside counsel can preserve the systems before Grant or Colin knows how much you found. If I confront them tonight, they deny it, clean up what they can, and make this about my anger. I won't give them that escape. You want evidence. I want a record strong enough to survive me. That sentence stayed with me. The most powerful man in the company was telling me his power should not be the thing that decided whether I was believed. "What do you need from me?" "Your permission to preserve the files you showed me and whatever else you choose to provide." I took one breath. "Do it." Marcus nodded. No smile. No victory. As I closed the laptop, his hand moved an inch across the table, like instinct had told him to reach for me. He stopped before touching me. I noticed. So did he. Neither of us said anything. The next morning Marcus removed himself from every evidence decision connected to my complaint. Internal audit took control of the records, and outside counsel supervised the review. If the truth is going to protect you, he told me before the first meeting, it has to stand when I'm not in the room. At 9 I sat with Rachel Morgan from Compensation, 2 auditors, and an attorney. Rachel was a beta I knew mostly as the woman who remembered birthdays and kept peppermint tea in her desk. That morning, she looked sick. I found 3 versions of the Bellwood incentive file. The first listed me as primary strategist. The second moved Grant into the lead position. The final version added Colin as senior support and reduced me to analytical assistance. "Who made the last edit?" an auditor asked. Rachel swallowed. "Grant Caldwell's account." The payroll system did not have a memory problem. For hours, the team compared my originals with server records. The important point was no longer proving every incident twice, it was seeing that the same hands appeared again and again. Grant changed credit. Colin altered files after submission. Calendar records showed access disappearing after I completed preparation. Then an order to place 2 performance reviews beside mine. The wording was nearly identical. Too sensitive. Inconsistent under pressure. Difficulty accepting guidance. One belonged to a junior beta analyst in operations. The other belonged to an Omega project coordinator. Both had questioned missing credit shortly before their evaluations changed. Rachel went pale. I know them. Did either report it? The attorney asked. One asked payroll why his quarterly incentive was reduced. Grant called his manager the next day. After that, he stopped asking. She looked down. I should have said something. You were scared, I said. So were you. Yes. For once, saying it did not feel like confession. The audit team also interviewed the other 2 employees separately. I was not allowed in those interviews, which was exactly how it should have been, but outside counsel later confirmed that their timelines overlapped with mine in ways none of us could have coordinated. One had lost a quarterly bonus after asking why Grant's name appeared on work he had completed. The other had been removed from a high-visibility project days after objecting to Colin's changes. That mattered because it destroyed the easiest defense Grant could have used, that I was a uniquely difficult employee misreading ordinary management. I was not unique. That realization was painful in a different way. I had wanted the cruelty to be personal, because personal cruelty at least had an explanation. A pattern meant Grant and Colin had looked for people they believed would be easy to isolate. Junior employees. Omegas. Betas without powerful sponsors. People whose fear could be mistaken for consent. Rachel stared at the table after counsel explained it. They knew exactly who was least likely to fight back. No, I said, surprising myself. They knew who they thought was least likely. It was a small distinction. It felt enormous. By afternoon, the audit also flagged unusual client hospitality reimbursements Grant had approved. Several did not match. Scheduled meetings. One vendor receiving repeated payments had no clear role in our department. Outside counsel separated that issue into a financial review. The case had become bigger than stolen credit. When I met Marcus afterward, he listened while I told him about the other employees and the expense records. I thought you were going to fire Grant the night you found me, I said. I wanted to. Why didn't you? His expression changed in a way that made the room feel smaller. Because wanting to destroy someone and having the right to do it are not the same thing. The honesty surprised me. What would you have done? Marcus looked toward the window. In the first 10 seconds? Removed both of them from the building and made sure nobody in this industry forgot why. There it was, the enigma everyone whispered about. Then he looked back at me. But anger is easy. Accountability has to survive lawyers, records, and time. If they fall, I want them to fall because every door they used to trap you has been opened in daylight. A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with fear. There are other people, I said. I know. What if they won't speak? Then they choose when they're ready. The answer was simple, but it changed something in me. Until then, I wanted only to prove Grant and Colin had not broken my career. Now I wanted the pattern to end. I want to keep going. Marcus nodded once. As I stood, his gaze caught mine and stayed a second too long. Not CEO to employee. Not Enigma to Omega. Just a man looking at another man as if he wanted to say something and knew this was not the time. I was the one who looked away first. The retaliation came the next afternoon. Human Resources called me to the 29th floor, where an outside attorney placed a printed complaint on the table. It claimed I had developed an inappropriate personal relationship with Marcus Whitmore and was using access to the CEO to manipulate the investigation against Grant and Colin. For a moment I could not breathe. Every private conversation replayed in my head. The break room. The lounge. Marcus holding himself back from touching me. The way his eyes had lingered yesterday. Nothing improper had happened. But the accusation was clever because it took the one thing that had made me feel safe, his restraint, and turned it into something dirty. Who filed this? Anonymous, the attorney said, though the details narrow the possible sources. What happens now? The allegation is being reviewed separately. Mr. Whitmore has no role in either process. When I returned downstairs, Colin watched me from behind his monitor. Grant's office door remained closed. I opened a blank resignation letter. If I disappeared, the accusation disappeared with me. Marcus would not have to defend himself. The company would not have to choose between its founder and one junior Omega. I typed the first sentence twice. Rachel appeared beside me. Don't. You don't know what I'm writing. I know what surrender looks like when it's formatted as a letter. I stared at her. If you leave because you want another life, leave. If you leave because they finally found the right way to scare you, they still own the ending. The words hit hard enough that I closed the document. At 6, Marcus asked if I wanted to talk. I nearly refused, afraid that being seen with him would make the complaint look true. Then I realized that was exactly what Grant wanted. Marcus was waiting in the lounge. This time I sat without asking where. I know about the complaint, he said. I was going to resign. He went completely still. Is that what you want? I don't know. Then don't answer for me. If I leave, this gets simpler. For whom? I had no answer. If you want another job, another city, another life, I'll support you. But if you disappear because Grant frightened you into it, he still controls the ending. What if people believe him? Then evidence matters. What if they think you helped me? Outside counsel has access to my communications, calendar, and instructions. I asked for that review myself. I looked at him sharply. You volunteered your records. Yes. Why? Because I won't ask you to stand in the light while I hide behind my title. Something inside my chest shifted. Marcus continued. There's one decision nobody can make for you. Do you want to sit in the room where Grant and Colin have to answer for what they did? My hands were trembling. This time, I left them on the table. I want to testify. Marcus nodded. Then stay for that reason. I stood, but before I reached the door I turned back. Marcus. It was the first time I had used his first name directly. His eyes lifted. After this is over, was any of it real? He understood exactly what I meant. His voice dropped. Ask me when you are free to believe the answer. My heartbeat stumbled. That was all he gave me. It was enough. The next morning I deleted my resignation, submitted my full statement, and signed the hearing notice. Fear was still in the room with me. It just wasn't making decisions anymore. The night before the hearing, I slept less than 2 hours. At 1:17 a.m., I opened my statement again and almost rewrote every sentence to sound calmer. Less angry. Less hurt. Less like someone Grant could call emotional. Then I stopped. That was his voice in my head, not mine. I closed the document without changing a word. At 1:26, my phone lit up with a message from Marcus. He did not ask whether I was awake. He did not tell me what to say the next morning. The message contained one sentence: you do not have to sound fearless to tell the truth. I read it until the screen dimmed. Then I put the phone face down and finally slept. The formal hearing began at 9 on the 30th floor. Grant sat across from outside counsel in a dark suit, his attorney beside him, composed enough to look innocent. Colin stared at the documents in front of him. Rachel sat with the audit team. Marcus was across the room, present only as an observer. He did not sit beside me. I was grateful. I wanted Grant to understand that I had come without needing Marcus to carry me. Grant spoke first. Evan is talented, but he has struggled with pressure for some time. We tried to support him. It was the tone people used when they wanted cruelty to sound like concern. Colin said I submitted inaccurate work and became defensive when senior staff corrected it. My pulse raced. May I respond? The attorney nodded. The Bellwood timeline appeared on the screen. Grant says he led the recovery. The client accepted my revised pricing strategy before he attended the final meetings. A client email thanked me directly for preventing the account from leaving Sterling Ridge. Grant shifted. I was supervising the process. The next screen showed the 3 compensation records. Primary strategist, Evan Parker. Then Grant moved into the lead role. Then my contribution shrank while Colin appeared as senior support. The last edit came from your account, the auditor said. Administrative corrections happen. I looked straight at Grant. Why did this correction remove my name? He did not answer. Colin leaned forward. Evan is focusing on technical details because he doesn't understand senior responsibility. The screen changed. Version histories. My submissions first. Colin's login later. Numbers altered after delivery. Did you change these files? Outside counsel asked. I reviewed them. Did Evan know you changed the figures? Silence. Calendar records followed. Removed meetings. Changed deadlines. Rachel testified about compensation histories and the 2 other employees whose reviews worsened after they challenged missing credit. Grant's calm finally cracked. This entire process is compromised because Evan has unusual access to Marcus Whitmore. Every eye turned. Outside counsel answered before Marcus did. Mr. Whitmore did not participate in evidence review, witness interviews, disciplinary recommendations, or the complaint process. His communications and directives were independently reviewed. No improper intervention was found. Grant looked at me. So everyone is supposed to believe this is coincidence. Marcus finally moved. He did not raise his voice, but the room changed around it. Say it again, Grant. Grant turned toward him. Marcus nodded toward the evidence. Say whatever you believe happened. This time, say it with the records open. Grant's mouth closed. The final screen appeared. An internal message from Grant to Colin, sent after I questioned a performance comment, make sure Parker understands who controls his evaluation. No one spoke. Outside counsel closed the evidence file. The performance warning issued to Evan Parker is withdrawn. Effective immediately. The allegation that he manipulated this investigation is unsupported. His personnel record will be corrected. Grant Caldwell and Colin Reeves are suspended pending final disciplinary findings. Their system and building access are revoked as of this meeting. Grant pushed back from the table. This is absurd. Colin stood too, his chair scraping sharply against the floor. I was following Grant's direction. The sentence landed badly. Grant turned on him. Don't be ridiculous. For months they had operated as a single machine, one altered the work, the other validated the story. Now, with consequences finally real, the machine split in seconds. Outside counsel raised a hand. Any allocation of responsibility will be addressed during the disciplinary phase. Sit down. Neither man did. Marcus looked at them, and the pressure in the room deepened. You both spent a great deal of time insisting Evan should respect process, he said. You will do the same. They Saturday. I had imagined this moment in uglier ways. I had imagined shouting. Apologies. Grant begging me to understand. Colin finally admitting he had enjoyed making me doubt myself. None of that happened. What I got was better. They had to listen while the record they had manipulated was read back accurately, with their names attached to their own choices. Outside counsel nodded to security. The order authorizes escort. For the first time, Marcus stood. His Enigma presence hit the room like a pressure change before a storm. The Alpha's nearest Grant went rigid. Even Colin stopped breathing for a beat. Marcus did not lose control. That was what made it frightening. You spent months using authority to convince people beneath you that they were too small to challenge you, he said. You altered records, retaliated against employees, and then tried to hide behind my company when someone finally documented it. Grant's face went pale. Marcus looked toward security waiting outside the glass doors. The independent order is already in effect, he said. Then he looked toward security. Execute it. His gaze returned to Grant. If the final findings confirm the financial misconduct, Sterling Ridge will pursue every recovery available to it. And you will not use my company, your title, or anyone under your authority to reach Evan again. Marcus, Mr. Whitmore, Marcus said. 2 words. Nothing loud. Grant stopped. Security escorted him and Colin from the floor. That was the moment the title everyone had given Marcus in whispers finally made sense to me. He had not destroyed them because I cried. He had waited until the truth gave him the right to close every door they had used against us. Then he did. When the doors shut behind them, Marcus's presence vanished as quickly as it had appeared. He looked at me, not like a man waiting for gratitude, but like he was checking whether I was still standing. I was. Rachel squeezed my hand once. My eyes burned. For months Grant and Colin had controlled the story because they believed nobody would look closely enough. That morning every lie they had built was placed beside the truth. The truth won without shouting. But when the shouting was finally over, Marcus made sure they could never use Sterling Ridge to hurt us again. By the following afternoon, Human Resources had removed every warning connected to Grant and Colin from my personnel file. Payroll restored the Bellwood incentive compensation, including an adjustment for the delay. I read the email twice. Rachel set a coffee beside my keyboard. You look like you're expecting bad news. I think my body forgot emails can contain good things. It'll remember. A new meeting invitation arrived from Human Resources and 3 members of the leadership committee. My stomach tightened automatically. Rachel pointed at me. That. We're retraining that. The meeting was not an ambush. The committee offered me a promotion to account strategy manager, responsible for major client recovery plans and a small analyst team. I stared at the compensation sheet. Is this because of the investigation? No, the HR director said. It's because the investigation forced us to review work that had been credited incorrectly. She placed a folder in front of me. It contained recommendations from Bellwood, 2 department heads, the audit team, and a vice president who had reviewed my account history. Marcus's name was absent. He didn't recommend me. Mr. Whitmore removed himself from the promotion process before your candidacy was discussed. Relief surprised me. I wanted the role, but I needed to know it belonged to me. Can I answer tomorrow? Of course. That evening I went to the executive floor. Marcus stood near the windows, the Charles River dark beneath the city lights. Congratulations, he said. You knew. The committee informed me after the decision. You stayed out of it. Yes. Why? He watched me for a moment. Because I never wanted you wondering whether you earned something or whether I gave it to you because I care about you. My heartbeat changed. You care about me? Yes. No hesitation. No Enigma pressure. No attempt to make the answer feel inevitable. The night I found you in the break room, he continued, I wanted to fix everything. I wanted Grant and Colin gone before you finished telling me what happened. But you didn't. Because then your future would still have been decided by a powerful man acting over your head. The intention would have been different. The theft of choice would not. I looked down. What do you think now? Now I think you never needed me to rescue you. You needed someone with enough power not to look away while you found your own voice. You really do rehearse careful answers. A faint smile touched his face. Only the ones that matter. I stepped closer. He stayed where he was. That night in the lounge, you almost touched my hand. His eyes darkened slightly. I did. Why didn't you? Because I wanted to. The answer sent warmth through me. And that's why you stopped. Yes. I laughed under my breath. That might be the most Enigma answer I've ever heard. It was not meant to impress you. It did. For the first time, Marcus looked almost uncertain. I liked that more than I expected. I crossed the final distance and took his hand first. His fingers closed around mine, careful despite the strength in them. I'm choosing dinner, I said. Dinner. One date. Outside this building. No auditors. No attorneys. No performance reviews. His smile arrived slowly. I would like that. One condition. Name it. Before this becomes anything, I don't report through you. Not directly. Not indirectly. Approval softened his expression. Human Resources has already prepared an alternate reporting structure, but it happens only if you accept the promotion. I squeezed his hand. Then I think I have 2 answers to give tomorrow. 3 months later, the final investigation closed. Grant Caldwell was terminated for retaliation, falsified performance evaluations, misappropriation of incentive credit, and misuse of company funds. The financial review confirmed improper reimbursements and compensation. Sterling Ridge demanded repayment and referred unresolved financial issues to counsel. Colin Reeves was terminated for altering reports, assisting retaliatory reviews, and providing false information during the investigation. His management authority was stripped immediately, and Sterling Ridge declined to provide any leadership recommendation. Their fall was not a dramatic rumor Marcus spread through the industry. It was worse for men like them. It was documented. Every warning they placed in my file disappeared. The company formally recognized me as the primary strategist behind the Bellwood recovery. My restored compensation arrived. After independent review, my promotion became permanent. The beta analyst and Omega coordinator discovered during the audit received corrected evaluations and restored opportunities. Rachel joined a new employee advocacy committee. Sterling Ridge created an anonymous reporting channel, an independent performance appeal process, stronger audit trail protections, and automatic review whenever one manager controlled both an employee's evaluation and compensation. Marcus kept his promise too. Before our first official date, Human Resources removed him entirely from my reporting chain. At work, he was still Marcus Whitmore, the founder whose silence could frighten a room full of alphas. Outside work, he was the man who remembered I preferred quiet restaurants, who walked with me beside the Charles River on Saturday mornings, and who could make me laugh by pretending he did not know the difference between cheap diner coffee and the expensive beans served on the executive floor. We took our time. Our first date was almost embarrassingly normal. Marcus chose a small Italian restaurant in Beacon Hill with only 12 tables and no private room waiting for a CEO. He arrived before me, stood when I walked in, and looked briefly more nervous than he had at the hearing. That helped. Halfway through dinner, I asked, "Do you always look this uncomfortable without a board agenda?" "No." "So it's me." "Unfortunately." I laughed so suddenly I nearly spilled my water. The man who could freeze an entire executive floor with 2 words turned out to be terrible at pretending he did not care what I thought of him. We talked about everything except Sterling Ridge. He told me he hated networking dinners, loved old crime films, and had once ruined a company retreat by refusing to sing karaoke. I admitted I collected terrible mystery paperbacks and sometimes read the ending first when I was anxious. You spoil the ending. I prefer to know whether the suffering is worth it. Marcus was quiet for a second. Then he said, "And now?" I understood the question beneath the question. I looked at him across the candlelit table. Now I think some endings are better when you choose them yourself. His smile was small, but it stayed with me all the way home. There was no sudden bond, no possessive claim, no moment where Enigma instinct became an excuse to ignore what I wanted. Once, outside a restaurant, an alpha brushed too close to me and Marcus's scent sharpened so quickly the man stepped back. Marcus immediately looked at me. Sorry. I smiled. You didn't do anything. I thought several things. I can imagine. You probably can't. That became one of the first times I laughed hard enough around him to forget who he was at work. Months passed before I noticed I no longer opened every email expecting punishment. One Friday afternoon, I found myself standing outside the old break room on the 24th floor. Sterling Ridge had renovated it during the Employee Wellness Initiative. The harsh fluorescent lights were gone. Warm lamps filled the room. A grey couch sat beside the window. Plants lined a shelf. The coffee machine actually worked. I stepped inside and stopped near the place where I had once sat crying in darkness, convinced my career was ending because two powerful men had decided my truth did not matter. The memory was still there. It just no longer owned the room. Marcus appeared at the doorway carrying 2 coffees. He did not come in immediately. Want company? I smiled. Some things about him had never changed. Always. He sat beside me and handed over 1 cup. Late winter sunlight reflected from the Boston buildings and turned the river pale gold. This room feels different, I said. It is different. I think I am too. Marcus looked at me. You were never what they said you were. This time, the words did not hurt. I know. I was not difficult because I wanted credit for my work. I was not unstable because unfairness hurt. I was not weak because I cried. I had been exhausted, cornered, and afraid, and I had still found enough courage to stay when disappearing would have been easier. Marcus had never given me that courage. He had simply been the first powerful person who refused to look away long enough for me to recognize it in myself. I rested my head against his shoulder. His hand found mine. No warning emails. No manipulated reviews. No whispered threats. No need to make myself smaller. Just warm light, coffee, the quiet hum of the heating system, and the man beside me who had enough power to destroy the people who hurt me, but enough respect to wait until the truth, the law, and my own choices led us there. I had once hidden in that room because I thought being hurt made me weak. Now my name was restored, my future was mine, and Marcus was beside me because I had chosen him. For the first time in years, being quiet did not mean I was hiding. It meant I was safe enough to rest,